What's up, everybody? This is the Shot Clock Sports Report podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Ben Cantor and Garrig Segman. Guys, thank you for coming on.
How you
Of
doing?
course. Glad to be here.
All right, so in today's episode, very similar to the last one, we got some college football, got some NFL. We're going to wrap up with some MLB. Let's start on the college side of things. Week 3, nothing too crazy, I guess, highlighted by a big BYU upset over what was a number 9 ranked Kansas State team. But I'll ask you guys, what do you think was a very big win for the week?
Gotta be Tennessee over Oklahoma in Norman. That's probably the biggest win of the week. Utah also beat Oklahoma State.
I mean,
So,
I'll try to. I think that Colorado game. We really needed that. So there was
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah, I'll say that game seemed like both Baylor and Colorado had a lot to prove. And that was a completely miraculous win pulled out by Colorado. Obviously, I wouldn't say they're a playoff team in the slightest, but I do think this is room to do something impressive with this season, saying it's the final year of Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders before Deion Sanders is going to have to figure something else out. One question I'll ask you guys, let's start with Ben here. What's so far, who do you got as your number one-loss team? I'll just throw a couple names at you: Michigan, USC, LSU, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma State.
For me, there's two teams in that. I'm gonna start with USC. Miller Moss. Really good. He's bringing a lot to the table. He's giving good output. He's leading a USC. In that top 25 by the end of the season to a team that could end up in the top 15. My second is Clemson. I'm big on Clay Klubnik. And they have guys like Barrett Carter on defense that can give a really good And so I think that loss to Georgia, if you put it away, this Clemson team, ACC division that isn't necessarily going to be the hardest to win, I could definitely see them walking out of the ACC.
Yeah, definitely, Gary. Let's move over to you.
it's hard for me. I'm leaning USC and Michigan. I'll go with Michigan just because they beat USC this past weekend. But Clemson looks great. Would I say they would come out of the ACC? No, because Cam Ward and Miami, they just look so put together. And I've never seen a quarterback look as comfortable as Cam Ward.
I think if there's any defense that can shut down Cam Ward, ACC division.
I completely get that. I mean, the ACC, if we're being honest, it's weak. And it's been weak for a couple of years. But yeah, Miami and Clemson are far and away the two best teams in that conference. You can't sugarcoat that. Florida State, they're not a good squad. I'm sorry.
Not good.
Florida State,
Finally getting that win against Cal. I'll go with an interesting team. I'll say Notre Dame. I think they run the ball very well. Obviously, they have a lot of issues in their passing game. They're very similar to Michigan in that sense. But I think their backfield is much deeper than Michigan. That's why I like them slightly more. I do think they have a great test at home this week against Louisville. That could show a lot of people that that NIU game really was just a fluke. And Louisville's you're not going to be able to throw them around. It's going to test Riley Leonard, that's for sure. I know there is a QB controversy at Notre Dame. A lot of guys do like Angeli. They would like to see getting some more snaps in. But Riley Leonard does run the ball really well, so I guess I see what Marcus Freeman's doing with sticking with your guns. Because, I mean, they did have that huge win over Texas A&M to open the year. Let's now look ahead to Week 4. Undoubtedly biggest matchup of the week. Georgia versus Alabama, the rivalry. Who do you guys have in this big game? Start with
As
you,
Pat
Ben.
McAfee once said, wait, I don't actually know what it says. I got Bama. Roll Tide. Jalen Milrow is the definition of a dual threat quarterback that can put the team behind him and go out and win. I think that they had a lot of people under expectation, not doing as well as they have in the past years. But I think Kalen DeBoer has done a great job with this team. And I really could see Bama gets the win over Georgia. I'm not a big fan. And Trevor Etienne hasn't necessarily been the best guy. I do like
This one, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I honestly, I don't give a piss about nothing but the Tide. Give me Alabama. All right. I think Kevin DeBoer is gonna take this first, I wouldn't say this first Georgia game. I mean, Georgia's only favored by 2 points, and it's in Tuscaloosa. I'm sorry, but college football is one of those sports where I think home field advantage really does matter. Having your school behind you in a game like this is what's going to get you over the hump. That's what's going to get you from being a +2 underdog to winning the game. And it's not like Georgia is, or it's not like Alabama's the 14th or 15th ranked school. No, they're 4th. Georgia's 2. It's not like, that's not a crazy difference. I got Alabama.
Stadium Post about to be wild.
I hear what you guys are saying, and I think a really interesting part of this matchup is you got both teams coming off their bye week. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Georgia. I think Kirby Smart is a better coach than DeBoer, and for that reason, I think Georgia's going to be better prepped to go into Tuscaloosa and grab the win. I think sort of like what Ben had said, but I'm going to go in the opposite direction. DeBoer isn't used to a game this big. I mean, he had some big games against Oregon, but the SEC is a whole different ball game, especially when you got Georgia and you're the underdog. I don't really think Washington was ever the underdog during a game that I guess you could say who they played in the semifinals last year to make the championship.
Texas.
They were an underdog in that game, but I think this is going to be a whole different breed, especially coming off the bye week. That's why I like Georgia. I think Kirby Smart is going to be able to outcoach and have the Bulldogs out-prepare the Crimson Tide. Another few games I would like to mention this week is a bounce-back game for two teams that are coming off losses. You got Oklahoma State, Kansas State, 20-23 in the nation. Like I noted, both coming off those losses. And this is a very big game for the Big 12 standings. I think many people at this point would consider Utah as the number 1, but Oklahoma State and Kansas State as the close 2 and 3. How about this matchup? Who do you guys like? Let's start with Ben again.
I haven't watched a good amount of Kansas State and Oklahoma State games. But from what I'm hearing in my intuition, I'm gonna say Oklahoma State. I think that they have the opportunity to finish in the top 15, and I think Kansas State is a good run, but I don't see them ending the season in the top 5.
I'm gonna go with Kansas State here. Obviously, that big loss to BYU is like a gut punch. But they beat number 20 Arizona 2 weeks ago, and Oklahoma State just lost to Utah strictly because of that. Like, I understand we're only going into week 5, but a ranked win's a ranked win, and Arizona was 20 a couple weeks ago. Oklahoma State is 20. I'm looking at that and seeing 4.5-point favorites at home. I like Kansas State.
I'm going to agree with Gary here. I'm going to go Kansas State. I will say, I thought that BYU game for Kansas State last week had trap game written all over it, and that's exactly what happened. BYU jumped out, and you could just see Kansas State really unravel in that game and just lose control so quickly. And that's something I don't think is going to happen against Oklahoma State. I do think they kind of took BYU for granted. And when you look at what the Kansas State defense did against an electric offense in Arizona, I think they're going to do something very similar to that against an electric offense, Big 12 opponent, in Oklahoma State. So for that reason, I like Kansas State. I think this is going to be a really close game. May even top. I'm not going to say that. We'll be close to what we're going to see at Alabama, Georgia. Final thing for college football. I just want to throw a few possible upsets this week at you guys, just because I do see a couple when I'm looking at the schedule. You got Arkansas going into College Station. You got Ohio State having to go into Michigan State. I think that's very interesting. You got Illinois versus Penn State. Let me see what else. Arizona versus Utah. I think could have another trap game right over that. Kentucky, Ole Miss. Any of those games really jump out at you guys as potential upsets this week?
I want to say two things.
Go for it.
I think so. Penn State has always been a really good football program, but they've basically been wired to beat every team in the Big Ten that isn't Michigan or Ohio State. So I think they'll host Illinois, take care of business, but later down the line, I don't see them making the playoff. And then, I'm sorry, but Ole Miss is going to handle Kentucky so easily. I am a huge Jackson Dart fan. I am talking myself into Jackson Dart for Canada. For Heisman. I'm probably his biggest fanboy right now. I mean, look at these scores: 76-0, 52-3, 40-6, 52-13. Those are very wide margins. Yeah, they're not playing strong opponents, but it's college football. You know, it's hard to win 76-0 in any sport. That's what Ole Miss is doing right now is very impressive. And Jackson Dart right now is my pick for Heisman.
I mean,
Right,
I'm
Ben,
gonna
what about you?
with the exact opposite of that. I like Kentucky over Ole Miss. That Kentucky team when they played that Georgia team and they was it 13-10?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, a lot of flags were thrown in both directions, but they played really good football. Their defense was especially very good, holding a Georgia team to 13 points, leading and going into half. I think they have the tools to beat an Ole Miss team. I think that Ole Miss is a top program in the country, but Kentucky has played with team already. And on the other hand, Ole Miss hasn't really played any team that stands out. So I think Kentucky would be more comfortable, and I could see them Kentucky winning with a win.
I'm going to go with a different game I mentioned, and that's not really a huge upset, but I do think I really do like Arkansas going into College Station this weekend. The Razorbacks' only loss was a double overtime to Oklahoma State, and other than that, they've looked very good on both sides of the ball. So for that reason, I do think they could go into College Station and grab a win versus a very underwhelming Texas A&M team, I'd say, to this point in the year. And they barely escaped Bowling Green this past Saturday. And I'm torn on this one. Michigan State versus Ohio State. Ohio State off to slow starts every single game this year. And Michigan State has kept every single game close this year, no matter whether it's been a good opponent or a bad opponent. And for that reason, I do think Michigan State can maybe punch Ohio State in the mouth and then hang around late in the game and keep it close, keep it entertaining. Will they have a big enough lead to hold Ohio State off? That I'm not sure of, but I don't think this game is going to live up to the Ohio State 24-point spread that it shows. Let's head over to the professional side of things. NFL. Week 3 showed us a lot. showed some pretenders, showed some contenders. What do you think? What team do you think had a really big statement win? Garrick, go ahead.
That's a great question. I think Seattle. I know. I understand Tua Tagovailoa is out. I understand you use Skylar Thompson's your quarterback, and if I'm correct, he got injured late in that game. But you hold a high octane offense to 3 points. I was able to get I was able to watch a few minutes, late third quarter, early fourth quarter. Um, Dolphins were knocking on the door at the goal line, and Seattle's secondary, man, it is special. You know, I don't
Yeah.
understand why they didn't just hand the ball off to Devon Achane, but I think don't let Seattle enter the playoffs because their secondary can cause problems. Um, and it's gonna be really interesting to see how it plays out. I'm not sure what Seattle's schedule is, but they could steal a couple of wins. They play San Fran in 3 weeks. San Fran's really beat up right now.
Yeah.
If you're missing George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, 3 guys who are at the top of their position, I'm sorry, I think you can steal a win there. On paper, San Fran's better, but you're missing your guys. You're missing your tokens. Seattle is probably one of the better 3-0 teams right now.
All right, Ben.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. I want to say something about that. They did all of this without Kenneth Walker. That is Zach Charbonnet in the backfield. And as soon as Kenneth Walker comes back, that offense becomes way more electric. But my favorite statement win has to be the Minnesota Vikings. What was it? 7-point blowout. And Sam Darnold just looked really good. I think that he's finally getting his chance with a good offense. The only places that he started were New York and Carolina, and we all know that's not going to end well. Zach Wilson and Bryce Young at the top of their position in the draft. And I think he's finally getting to prove. You know, Justin Jefferson is good. He's doing Justin Jefferson things. The biggest surprise for me going into the season is Aaron Jones. He's looked really good.
Yeah, he's
Not just
back in
football.
Packers form.
Yeah, he's not just running the ball, but he's running the ball at a high level. And that defense. Harrison Smith. I want y'all to remember that name. I think he could definitely have a really big. And Brian Flores really sent the blitz on CJ Stroud, where they got to him a good amount of times. So I think that Vikings to me is the team that could walk out of the NFC later this year.
Yeah, I do think I like both those picks, but I'll harp on that Vikings pick. I think Brian Flores is an excellent defensive mind, especially in the coordinator position. I think Kevin O'Connell is a great offensive mind, and that's really showing. I mean, they're firing on all cylinders at this point. For my win, another dominant blowout. I'm going to go with the Bills over the Jaguars on Monday night. That offense has had questions for the first 2 weeks. There's no Diggs. But they look tremendous. Josh Allen is Josh Allen, and he'll make it work with anybody, is what he showed us. The defense looked great. Offense looked great. I think that was a game where they just looked like an all-around great team and could definitely be coming out of the AFC. Now, were the Jaguars a big test? No, the Jaguars look very bad through their first 3 games. But I'm really excited for Sunday night against the Ravens. Then they go play the Texans, then the Jets. So they got a lot of tests coming up, and that's something I'm really excited for to see in this Bills team, because I do think this is finally the Bills' year, and they could come out of the AFC. Now, on a different note, who are some teams maybe that you think are? Let's start with overrated. Overrated through the first 3 weeks. Maybe not as good as people are saying they are. Their record shows that they are. Ben, we'll head over to you.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
That made me
They-
so happy.
They just have
They just
not looked
have not
good.
looked that good.
Jalen Hurts is
Jalen
not
Hurts
playing
is
at that
not
level
playing
he
at that level
usually is.
he usually is.
I get AJ Brown isn't
AJ
healthy,
Brown isn't healthy,
but they still have
but they
so
still
many.
have so many.
Saquon Barkley is
Saquon Barkley is
individually
individually
keeping that team
that
competitive.
team competitive.
If he doesn't run
If
for
he
that,
doesn't
what
run
was
for
it,
that, what was it,
65-yard
6
touchdown, they don't win that game.
They don't win that game.
Defense looked good.
Defense
Jalen Hurts
looked good. Jalen
improved.
Hurts
Early
improved.
reception, he fumbled. And I just don't think this Eagles team is built to go deep on a playoff run. I don't think that they've shown that they can beat competitive teams without relying on play. I think you look at it from a point of view on paper, the Eagles are probably one of the better teams. But on the field, the production level is just
Go ahead, Garrick.
Eagles are.
Eagles
oh
are-
my god. Might sound biased because fortunately I'm a Giants fan, and Nick Sirianni said they took our best player, but they don't have Dexter Lawrence, so I don't know what. I'd like to read you guys some stats, all right? Quarterback 1 has 772 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Quarterback number 2 has 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Let's who is who?
It's funny you say this because I did just see this morning, but I know who is the first guy again?
Like, are you asking for his stats or who the actual person
No,
is?
I know guy 2 is Daniel Jones, and I think they're pretty even. I think I'd probably go with guy 2 in terms of stats because he's turning the ball over less, but I forget who person
Guy
number
1
1
would
is.
be Jalen Hurts. He isn't afraid of his own inadequacy. Rather, he doesn't understand the boundaries of his strength.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry, he's overrated. He's really
Yeah.
overrated.
Hey, Kenny Pickett in, baby.
He's been
I
handed
love-
everything on a silver platter. Like,
I love the
Yeah,
Philadelphia Eagles hate, but I'm gonna swing the rock over. Let's go to the AFC. Texans. They're 2-1, sure, and they looked great. They made a run to the divisional in the AFC playoffs last year, but this is a team that barely beat the Colts week 1, proceeded to barely beat the Bears in prime time. Then they get their first big test with the Minnesota Vikings, and they looked lost out there on offense. Now, could this just be growing pains? CJ Stroud's still a sophomore quarterback, and this is still a pretty new team getting used to each other. But I don't think people can quite yet say that the Texans are contenders in the AFC. I don't think when you put them up against tests like the Bills and the Chiefs that they're going to compete like people are saying and expecting that they will. I do think this team still has room to grow, and I still think this team needs to grow. So as of right now, I would say the Texans are overrated. Now that could easily change by the end of this year. But like I said, I just think that they haven't looked like the team that beat the Browns by 25 in last year's AFC wildcard that everyone was talking very excitedly about. Now let's switch sides. Underrated teams. Give me one. Garrick, you can start this time.
I love the Falcons. I understand they're 1-2. They've had a very hard schedule to start the season. I understand that Pittsburgh loss is something we have to look at. Then again, it's week 1, and Pittsburgh has a great defense. I think the Falcons' offense is a single receiver from on paper, of course, from being a good looking offense to a great offense. Um, and then look at their defense. You got Terrell and oh, this is gonna annoy me. They brought in Judon, and
Justin
then
Simmons.
Justin Simmons. There it is. That's a good defense. And I mean, you can't ignore Jesse Bates either. That's a good defense, man. I think they just got to find their stride, make a move for a receiver at the deadline. Doesn't even have to be anyone that amazing. It can just be someone of Mike Williams' caliber. And, like, I mean, I checked their depth chart before the season started. It's probably changed, but Darnell Mooney was listed as your wide receiver too. He's not that great. Drake London, I like a lot. I'm trying to trade for him in a bunch of different fantasy leagues. But you gotta get a true second option that's not Darnell Mooney if you want to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I will say Mooney has looked pretty good in the wide receiver 2 role, but like you said, I do think they could definitely use an upgrade, especially because they've kind of been using Mooney in that slot. So they don't really have a true wide receiver 2. So I think that's something that they could really use. Ben, how about you?
Just gonna go grab
something real quick.
What is that? Oh.
Got the man on the back. Yes. Again, this is one and two team that's coming off a blowout against prime time. But when you look at it, you said the Seahawks are a team that you think are. The Patriots took them to overtime. And that's with Jacoby Brissett quarterback. If Drake May takes over, I think they could end the season slightly below 500 or just above 500. And that's a little bias, coming from the Patriots fan. But I think Ramon Stevenson is really good. Demario Doug has looked really good. And so I think there's a lot of upside for this team. And I want to see what happens this year. Well, on a more serious note, my most underrated team is actually going to be the Commanders. Yeah, if you watched that game last night, Jaden Daniels might. Again, that's a Bengals team. I'd be glad to tell you how bad they are this season. But I think that Jaden Daniels has a lot of upside. I think Jonathan Allen can have a good season. If that O-line can protect and the one critique on him coming out of college is that pocket presence. If they can make him feel comfortable, this is a guy I would say could easily win.
Yeah, definitely. The Patriots hot take, very, very hot take. I do like the Commanders pick though. Sadly, Jaden Daniels isn't going to win Rookie of the Year because there's a guy named Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
But I'll give you guys mine.
Yeah.
I'm going to get there actually in a minute, but first off, I wanted to mention a team that is slightly overrated by record, but so underrated in the public eye. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers. These guys are 3-0, and Mike Tomlin does what he does best. He finds ways to win. I don't care. He doesn't care who they're playing. It's going to be a close game, and most of the time, the Steelers are going to come together in crunch time and come out on top. Now, do I still think that they have a QB issue with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson? Yes. But I do think that if Justin Fields can continue to grow, especially under the leadership of Russell Wilson, mentorship, I do think that the Steelers could be a winning season team in the AFC, maybe even compete for a wild card spot. I mean, right now they're looking like they can compete for the AFC North. So I'll say, get the Steelers on your radar, man. I mean, they are a 3-0 team that, let me pull, I just had their schedule up they got the Colts. I like them in that game. They got the Cowboys, who have looked awful. I think they could win that game. Then they got the Raiders. This is a team that could be 6-0 heading into Sunday Night Football against the Jets. So like I said, Steelers, get them on your radar. But next, this might even rival Ben's hot take, but I'm going to go with the New York Giants, man. They're 1-2. And right now, people are treating them like they're the joke of the league. I mean, this is a team that lost to the Vikings in week 1, which no one can now say is a bad loss. The Giants and the Vikings have made the 49ers with Brock Purdy and the Texans with CJ Stroud look awful. So I think you can cut Daniel Jones a break on that one, especially saying it was week 1. Then they play the Commanders in a game that they should have won. I mean, if they have a kicker, they win that game. So I'll say that's not a loss you can blame anyone for. It's tough luck losing your kicker on the opening play. And then finally, a win versus the Browns. A tremendous defense in the Browns, but a tremendous defense in the Giants. That front defensive line looks awesome with Burns, Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence. Arguably the best defensive line trio in the league. So for that reason, I'm going to say the Giants are underrated. And like Garrett, you noted earlier, Daniel Jones is one of the most, if not the most underrated quarterback in the league right now. He's getting way too much hate for that week 1 loss. He's looked pretty good in weeks 2 and 3, and he's really started to use Malik Neighbors to all of his capabilities. I really like the Giants Thursday Night Football against the Cowboys. I think they're going to make it a great game. I think Daniel Jones is going to go out on national television and show the entire country that he's a better quarterback than what the media is making him out to be. And I'll say this about Daniel Jones. I think he's one of, if not the toughest quarterback in the league. This is a guy that's dealt for years with the harsh New York media and with a very harsh New York Giants O-line. It looks like the O-line's finally turned a corner this year, but I've never seen a man take such a physical and then a mental beating during and after games from defenses and then the New York media. So I'm going to give it to Daniel Jones. I think I'm expecting a breakout performance from him, and I think he's the under-the-radar candidate for comeback player of the year. I think the Giants can maybe get rolling a little bit, so I think they're going to be a playoff team. I don't know. NFC East doesn't look great. I think they could maybe grab a couple wins there. I think they could maybe compete for that 7th wild card spot, especially if Malik Neighbors just keeps getting better like he did in week 3. Any take on that, guys?
I think that
You got it.
yes,
Yes,
the media's
the
too
media's
harsh on
too harsh on
Jones,
Daniel Jones,
but he makes some
but he
plays out
makes
there
some plays out there
sometimes.
sometimes.
I don't doubt
I
his
don't
ability
doubt
to
his
throw the
ability to
football
throw the ball
or run the
or
football.
run the football.
I doubt his decision making.
Decision making.
I think
I think
when it comes
when it
to
comes to
end of the game
end of the game
situation,
or
should I throw this
should I throw
ball?
this ball?
I take the
I think
option.
the option.
I can't put him high up
Can't
on
put
that
him high
list,
up on that list.
but I think Malik
I think
Neighbors
Malik
give him
Neighbors give him
a much higher
much
ceiling
higher
because
ceiling
he made
because
some catches in that game
that
that no receiver has
no
any
receiver
business
has
with.
any business with.
I want to keep this Daniel Jones experiment going on. We had that magical run 2 seasons ago. And if I'm being honest, I'm rooting for Giants losses. I I don't think Daniel Jones is the franchise quarterback. This is the first true wide receiver he's gotten, and that wide receiver is a stud. Can't deny that. But I feel like as Giants fans, we've always accepted mediocrity out of Daniel Jones just because it's better than what he's used to playing. And you can't win a Super Bowl if your quarterback is just going to be mediocre, and you're going to accept that. We look for him to be making routine plays that most quarterbacks in the NFL should and can make, but he just typically doesn't. And as a quarterback, it's your job to elevate the guys around you. Right now, Neighbors is the one elevating Daniel Jones. That can only go so far. You know, you can only get the ball to the same guy so many times before he gets shut down. And I think the Giants at the end of the season, they have to bite the bullet. They have to eat that money. They have to use that out on Daniel Jones' contract. Realize, hey, we got that playoff win, but at the end of the day, it's a failed experiment. It's he's not our guy. I don't think he's ever been our guy. I think he completely took advantage of that playoff win at the right time. I mean, quarterback contracts now are just absurd, you know? But I want the Giants to lose because I want the front office to realize we have to move on from this guy who more often than not is incompetent.
Now, I'm going to cut you off there, Garrett, because I'm going to say this. I think 70% completion percentage for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns is an above, I would say, great performance from Daniel Jones against what was a good Cleveland Browns defense. Sure, they looked a little flat in the second half. And sure, Malik Neighbors is elevating his game. But, I mean, this is the first year that we finally have gotten to see the O-line come together and him have a decent wide receiver core. And for that reason, I'm going to say I think Daniel Jones could be the guy. I'm going to go against what the media is saying. I'm going to go against what the fans are saying. I think Daniel Jones could really shock people starting this Thursday night. And I think the Giants could get it done with him. I think they could compete in now what is becoming slowly turning into a weak NFC East. I'm ready for Daniel Jones to show the world this Thursday. We're going to see. I mean, I would hate to have to eat my words this Thursday night if I see Daniel Jones play terrible, but I have confidence in the guy. And I say that truthfully. I have confidence in Daniel Jones, and I have confidence in the Giants. I think the offenses look good. I think the defense has looked good, especially in the red zone. The defense has looked tremendous. And the offenses also look better in the red zone. They're not stalling out as much. So for that reason, I mean, yeah, I think Daniel Jones and the Giants could get it done. Last thing. Ooh, I don't even know if I have another thing on the NFL. Let's see what week 4 is offering up. Any good matchups? Not really. Oh, here. Bills-Ravens. Let's end with this. Sunday
Bills.
night.
Bills.
We're going. What about you, Garrett? Let me hear it.
Bills. Today I saw the 2.5 point favorite. Baltimore's favorite. I'm like, are we watching the same NFL? Josh Allen is the MVP of the league. The Bills are 3-0, and on paper they got worse. But here they are, they're 3-0. They just blew the Jaguars out on Monday Night Football. We want to favorite Baltimore? And I thought this last week. I saw that New Orleans was favored against Philadelphia. I'm thinking, really? So we want to. We don't want to ride. We want to ride the hot hand of a New Orleans team. I'm saying this on paper, right? That is worse than Baltimore. But we're gonna look at Buffalo's 3-0 start, Josh Allen's MVP performance, and have them as 2.5-point dogs. That's just strange to me. I mean, I would imagine a lot of bettors in the U.S. are going to look at bet Buffalo plus 2.5. Bet Buffalo money line. And if Buffalo wins, Vegas is gonna take a hit. I mean, I would bet Buffalo.
All right. I feel like I've been doing this all night, but I'm gonna flip the script here again. I'm gonna go with the Ravens. I think there's a difference between a team that wants to win a game and a team that needs to win a game. The Ravens need this win, and they looked very good. They needed the win last week against the Cowboys, and that team looked great. Derrick Henry finally looks like he's Derrick Henry again, in full form. And I think pairing that with Lamar Jackson's running capabilities is really going to pay off for the Ravens. Not to say I think this is going to be a very close game, but I do like the Ravens to come out and win this ball game. Like I said, I just think this is a game that the Ravens are going to prepare for. They're going to be ready for. And I think it is possibly a game that the Bills aren't entirely ready for. They haven't gone up against a defense that is quite as good as the Ravens so far this season. Jaguars, obviously not. Dolphins, I would say obviously not. And Cardinals, no. So I think the Ravens are the biggest test for the Bills so far. And I think the Ravens have finally found their footing and are going to look to get running against Buffalo on Sunday. Okay, now that we've wrapped up NFL talk, let's talk to our final sport of the evening, MLB. Just a quick score update. Orioles up 1-0 against the Yankees right now in the top of the fourth. Yankees win means a clinch of the AL East, but I'm not really worried about that. I'd say, as a Yankees fan, for Yankees fans, the Yankees are going to win the division. It would take an all-time collapse for them to let this go. So I think that's pretty safe. I think all the Guardians have the Central locked up. I think the Mariners 4 games back of the Astros. I'd say the Astros have that locked up. Phillies won the National League East, Milwaukee. And I think the Dodgers 3 games will be enough for them to walk away with the NL West. They do play the Padres in a 3-game set, but then they got the Rockies. So I think that they'll, even if they lose 2 of 3 to the Padres, they can win at against the Rockies to end the year when it's a do or die. So what I really want to point your guys' attention to is the wild card race. National League has been shortened down to 4 teams: Padres, Mets, Diamondbacks, Braves. You got the Braves 2 games behind the Mets, 1.5 games behind the Diamondbacks. In the American League, you got 7 teams left in consideration, but I'd say get the Rays out of there, get Boston out of there. I'd say it's between the Mariners, Twins, Royals, Tigers, and Orioles. So who's a team? Well, here, just give me let's start with AL. Give me the 3 wildcard teams that you have.
Kansas City Royals.
Yeah.
Like Bobby Wood Jr.
So it's
Oh,
really
the Mets just made an error.
Oh, the Mets
Sorry.
just made an error. Sorry.
Give me the Twins
The Twins
and give me the O's.
and give me the O's.
I got Orioles. I got Royals. I got Tigers. The Tigers are hot, man. And if we look at recent MLB history, it's those teams that get hot right before the postseason and in the postseason that get you. For example, the Padres and Phillies 2 seasons ago, and the Diamondbacks last season. I am terrified of Detroit in a 3-game, 5-game series. In a 7-game, it's a little different. But in a 3-game series, you really just need. Well, okay, that's gonna sound stupid. But Skubal is gonna win you a game.
Yeah, I think the Tigers are a team that in a 3-game series are really going to punch you in the mouth game 1.
Exactly.
I'm gonna say the exact same thing as you. I like Orioles, Tigers, Royals. I like it the way it is now because the exact same thing you were saying. Tigers are hot. Royals have looked good. I mean, they are on a 7-game losing streak, which is a little scary. But I do see them holding on. I think Minnesota fans are just cursed. So I think the Twins are gonna maybe bring it to the last day where they have a chance. But I think the
Honestly, I
Royals
want
are
the
going to
Twins
grab that last spot.
I want the Twins to make it. Give us the Twins in the division series. Come on, Yankees
I would love
Twins.
to see the Twins make it, but
Come on, that
they close with the Orioles. And I guess I'll say this. If the Yankees can beat the Orioles in one game, so the Orioles have the position locked, I'll take the Twins because then they get an Orioles team in the final 3 games that aren't really playing for anything. But if the Orioles can pull off the sweep, then give me the Royals because the Twins are going to have to play an Orioles team that has a lot to play for. So I'm going to switch it up. I think the Twins actually have a higher chance of making it. I think the Royals might end up short.
so Kansas
what about
City
Mariners?
has. I don't.
Dude,
don't
I just want to say this real quick.
Yeah.
The Mets are.
The Mets are.
You want to shoot myself in the foot.
myself in the foot.
We just gave up
No, that's-
2 runs in the third inning
Yeah,
and are
no,
now losing
And
to
are
the
now
Braves.
losing to the Braves.
Every time I watch Yankees baseball, I think to myself, how many different ways are there to kill myself? Because sometimes it's just bad, man.
We just gave up
We just gave
an error
an error
and then 2
and
doubles,
then
and
2
now
doubles,
we're down
and
2
now
nothing.
down 2-0.
That's New York baseball.
Luis Severino.
Luis Severino.
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
Hey.
Yeah, jeez. I
Don't
still
say this.
jumping over to the NL. I like the Mets to hold on here. I do think the Braves are going to make it interesting, especially in this series right now. But I think things are going to stay the way they are. I think the Diamondbacks are going to hold on to that last spot. It's going to be the Padres and Mets. Any changes for you guys? What do you think?
So as a Mets fan,
So as a
I
Mets
think
fan, I think
this is something that's going to
this
be
is
hard
something
to say to
that's gonna
me.
be hard to say to me.
If we don't win
If
these
we
2
don't
games,
win these 2 games,
we're done.
we're done.
And you have a series against Milwaukee right after this.
I was about to say
I
that.
was about to say that.
Hard.
Never win against
Never
Milwaukee.
win against Milwaukee.
We're cursed. Reese
We're cursed.
Hoskins
Reese
plays
Hoskins
like he's
plays like
MVP,
MVP,
and
and
any guy, Willie
and Willie
Adames,
Adames,
William Contreras, they could all
they could all
go crazy
go
for them.
crazy for them.
And then you have the
And then
Royals
with
after.
the Royals after.
That is a
That is a
competitive end
competitive
schedule.
schedule.
If the pitching
If the pitching
is good,
is
they'll
good,
make it.
they'll make it.
And I think
And I
behind them,
Behind them,
Arizona Diamondbacks.
Arizona Diamondbacks.
I see that the
I see
Diamondbacks are.
that
I
the
think the Diamondbacks will be in.
So I think the Diamondbacks will
As
be
per
in.
usual, it's
As
going to
per
come
usual,
down.
It's going to come
Mets
down.
versus Braves.
Mets versus Braves.
I think the two West teams get it, and then
West teams get it.
the winner of this Mets
Winner of
Braves
this
series
Braves
is
series.
that last spot. Dude, that the Mets situation's rough. You need these games bad, real bad. 'Cause that series against Milwaukee's scary. Milwaukee's a good baseball team, man.
All right, last question for you guys. With the October baseball coming off postseason, very quickly, give me who you got coming out of the American League, who you got coming out of the National League.
I hate to say it because
Because
it's inevitable.
it's inevitable.
I got the
I got
Yankees.
the Yankees.
This is the healthiest I've ever seen them be going into the post. Oh, 2-0 Baltimore.
Going into the post.
Going into the bottom.
2-0 Baltimore.
They have 6 pitchers. They have 6 starting pitchers going into the
Six
postseason.
starting pitchers going into the postseason.
You got Cole, Rodon, Heel, Clark Schmidt's been balling this season, and then recently, Nestor Cortez has been
Yeah,
lights out.
he's back.
And then you also have Marcus Stroman in the bullpen. Not many teams have that. In fact, most teams only have 2 to 3 guys.
2 to 3 guys.
And you look at Detroit's
Look at
case,
Detroit's case.
they really only have that one
Really
guy.
have that one
But
guy.
that one guy makes it so
That
scary
one
in a
guy makes it
3-game
so
set
scary
and a 5-game
set
set
in a
because you're able
5-game
to
set.
pitch him on short
Because you're able
rest
to
in a
pitch
5-game
him on
series
short
if it goes
rest
to
in a
5
5-game
games,
series if it goes to 5 games.
which that could be 2 wins
That
for
could be
Detroit.
2 wins for Detroit.
But in a
But
7-game
in a
series,
7-game series,
that it's not as like.
Hit me with
doable.
your NL team real quick.
The Padres.
Interesting.
Look at the NL. Recently, the teams like it's been a wild card team to go into the postseason every year. The Dodgers somehow always flounder. It's absurd. I've never seen it. They've been a top 5 team in baseball every single season for the past decade. The one World Series championship in that decade is the COVID season. They always find a way to.
Let's not forget the trash banging scandal. that team.
Who's to say they beat the Yankees?
True.
Yo, be quiet.
All right, Ben, hit us with your pick. We'll end Gehrig's talk right there. Ben, hit us with your pick real quick.
The thing that's hard for me is what makes it so interesting is I believe their highest wins this season as of now is only 93. So for that reason, out of the AL, I'm going with the Cleveland Guardians. I like that team around the line for playoffs. If that team can stay healthy, that's a dangerous team in the American League. You can easily sweep a bad Yankees team and really hit them hard and take it from the AL. For the NL, as much as I would love to say my Mets, unfortunately, we're gonna go in a different direction, and I'm actually gonna go for Milwaukee. That team to me seems like they have everything figured out. And if again, that's a team that could go on a deep playoff run that a lot of teams aren't going to expect. You have that really good power hitting off, and they have some pitchers. So I like the Brewers and the Guardians to be our 2 World Series contenders this year.
All right, I like that pick. I'll say Brewers phenomenal second half. American League, I'm gonna go with what Gehrig said. Yankees, I do finally think this is their year to make it at least to the World Series. They have the best team on paper and they're healthy. And as of recently, they're performing pretty well. So they're not going in cold. I think they're the team to beat in the AL. You're done with the Astros. You don't got to play those guys. It seemed like they always had their number. Hopefully, don't have to play those guys. And I think if you do, you're the better team this time around. But yeah, I think I see them coming out the AL. Jumping over to the NL, I'm going to go with a different team than what both you guys said. Give me the best team in baseball right now, Philadelphia Phillies. They've had a strong hold on that National League all season long. And I also, similar to the Yankees, this is finally their year. It's been 2-3 years now that it just seems like the Phillies have been waiting to break through. And I think this is when they get it done. So Phillies, Yankees, I think it's going to be an exciting one. We'll cut back to this episode next month and see how all the predictions went. But that's going to wrap it up for today's episode.
Whoa,
Ben and Gehrig. What just happened?
Austin Wells. What? Oh, Judge homer to the left. Yay!
What? Oh, Judge homer to left.
Oh,
Let's just give up a run.
Yankees 2-1 ball game. What a way to end the episode. That's going to do it. Gehrig, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, you guys, for watching. This is the Shot Clock Sports Podcast, signing off. Stopping.